We open up on the dance floor. Music plays as we see two friends, Patrick and Jill, dancing together, having a blast. A man comes up to them to hit on Jill, but Patrick pretends to be her boyfriend despite actually being gay. The dance floor clears out for a contest that's about to begin. The MC, Samantha, announces the contest and invites the first pair onto the floor. She asks whether they'd like fast or slow music, and the first couple says fast. The first contestants move well together and sync as they dance to the rhythm of the beat. The next couple ask for slow music. Patrick and Jill comment on their suave moves. After this performance, the host rags on the contestants, saying that she's unimpressed. She eggs the audience on, saying that as a professional dancer she could pick any random person out of the audience as a partner and blow the rest of the contestants away. She picks a random man who's sitting alone wearing glasses. The man starts off slow, but then dramatically throws his glasses to the side as they pick up the pace. The crowd cheers as Jack spins Samantha around and smoothly moves around her. In the next scene, the host thanks Jack for coming. Their dance was actually a setup and Jack is a professional dancer. A woman, Jill, comes up to Samantha and David just after Jack leaves and asks about him, knowing it was a setup. Samantha says that Jack used to be a ballroom dancing teacher and tells her she just missed him. Bummed, Jill leaves. She goes to say goodbye to Patrick, who's dancing and flirting with a man. Jack walks home as the sun starts to rise. Moments later, we see that Jill is on the same bridge. Jill is approached by a mysterious woman in fur, with a thick accent, who says that on New Year's Eve she is going to run into the love of her life. Jill is happy to hear this news and adds the information into her calendar as a reminder. Moments later, the fortune teller approaches Jack, who is further down on the bridge, and tells him the very same thing, then hands him a cat. Jack immediately accepts the cat, as he is delighted to hear he is going to meet the love of his life, but then realizes he's now stuck with the car, who he affectionately calls Mr. Whiskers. The next morning, Jill and Jack go to their respective jobs, which appear to be in the same office, but don't know one another. They type at their computers and get various tasks done. Jack starts complaining about his divorce and expresses his complicated feelings about the fortune teller's comment, as well as missing his life as a ballroom dancer. However, the camera cuts to reveal he's telling a room full of people in a conference room. They look at him with shock and his boss redirects him to starting his presentation. Meanwhile, Patrick enters Jill's office. He updated her on the guy from the night before, saying that he wants to rush into a relationship, which Patrick has no interest in. Jill commiserates with him, but Patrick reminds her she just got out of a terrible relationship. She tells him about the encounter with the fortune teller, prompting Patrick to grab her phone and make a dating app profile for her. Back with Jack, he talks to his friend David, who is also his coworker. He tells David about the fortune teller giving him a cat and telling him he'll meet the love of his life on New Year's Eve. David says that he has the perfect woman for Jack to go out with, Hillary from his gym. Jack asks if they should go on a double date, but David and Samantha are more interested in meeting women for 3 ways. Jack thinks he's joking, but he isn't. David explains that Samantha lures women from Craigslist, then they have 3 ways. He exclaims that he's living the dream. That night, Jack meets up with Hillary. She's generally nice, but the pair don't have much to say to one another. Hillary's main hobby is working out, and Jack says he doesn't generally go to the gym. Hillary gets annoyed when he says he's just one of those people that doesn't need to work out. Meanwhile, Jill meets a man named Carter with a British accent from the dating app Patrick set up for her. Carter is an actor and is extremely into himself. Jill says this is her first dating app meetup. Carter goes on to exaggerate about his career as a reality show contestant, and now has a fan base, and states that he has to be careful about dating. He tells Jill she shouldn't assume anything about him. Then he tells her about the show he was on where he was naked on a submarine, and says he is now auditioning for a rehab-based dating show. When Jill asks if he's a drug addict, he clarifies that he's trying to become one for the show. Hillary asks Jack to dance after they finish their beers. She chugs her 3rd beer while he finishes his first, then she burps loudly. At the same bar, Jill and Carter dance, but Carter is a terrible dancer, and Jill is clearly not into it, so she asks if they can stop, which offends Carter. Just as Carter and Jill leave the dance floor, Hillary and Jack arrive. Hillary tries to lead, but Jack says he would prefer to. She agrees, but it's awkward as Hillary clearly is still trying to lead. Back at their table, Carter tells Jill that he knows that she thinks he's fat. Even though she insists she doesn't, he doesn't believe her. Suddenly, Carter drops his English accent, and when Jill notices this, he tells her that this is why he told her never to assume anything. When they leave the bar, there's a camera crew outside, which Carter thinks is for him, but it's actually for Mark Wahlberg. Back on the dance floor, Hillary says that he needs to let her lead and asks if it's a competition. While he insists it's not, it's just generally the man who leads, she asks if they should go somewhere to see who really leads, implying they're going home to get intimate. But actually, she takes him to a gym to work out. Jill goes to her friend Amy's house. Amy is getting married in a few days, and Jill asks for advice, questioning whether it's her who is causing this streak of bad guys. Amy boldly states that is indeed Jill's fault because she needs to shorten her list of boyfriend requirements, explaining that her own list used to be long, but as she got older it got shorter and shorter. Her fiancé, Ron, enters the room and says hi. When he leaves, Jill asks if Amy's settling for Ron and Amy says yes, explaining that he's dumb but hot and she knows he'll age well because of the way his dad looks. Amy calls Ron back in and asks to get a number for a friend to set Jill up with, but he can't remember who. Back in the car, Jack is fantasizing about a girl. But it's a woman who doesn't like dancing, and he's depressed that even the girls he fantasizes about aren't a good match for him. Ron calls Jack up to set him up with Jill, but Jack's phone dies before they can talk. When Jack gets home, he prepares mentally to talk to the girl and calls Ron back. But Ron misses the call and Jack leaves a message. After he hangs up, he tells himself the message was good, but then realizes it was really bad. The next day, there's a New Year's picnic party for AES, the company both Jack and Jill work for, at the park. Samantha and David set Jack up with their friend Vanessa. Jack whispers to Samantha if she met him on Craigslist and she says no. Jack makes a joke, but Vanessa laughs a bit too hard. Jill and Patrick also go to the party. Patrick tells Jill about a guy he was seeing who told him that he looked like his father, but they kissed anyway. Patrick tries to wingman Jill, but the guy they talk to is married. Then they run into Todd, who works in the warehouse and flirts with Jill. Vanessa tells Jack that she likes country music, then makes a strange comment about tying him up. Jack tells Samantha that Vanessa is crazy, but Samantha says that just means she's better in bed. Later that night, Jack goes to pick up Vanessa at her house, and Vanessa's teenage daughter makes Jack uncomfortable. At the bar, Jill and Todd are dancing and seem to be hitting it off. Jill tells Todd that she's been dancing her whole life, and Todd says it shows. Vanessa and Jack dance, but the two are clearly on different wavelengths. She tells him she wants to cut him up and spend her life inside him, which freaks him out, naturally. Todd makes Jill uncomfortable when he asks Jill if she was abused because abused chicks always dig him. Jack chats with David and says that he's realized he wants someone just to have someone to hang out with. A drunk woman walks up to Jack and says that she wants to run and jump into his arms, but she gets distracted and makes out with someone. Vanessa and Samantha dance together and Jack tells him to enjoy the three-way, obviously not interested in dating her and now slightly worried for his friend pursuing her. Jack spots Jill at the end of the bar as she's leaving, distracting him as the drunk woman jumps off the bar onto the floor. She stumbles and stands up, then exclaims that he didn't catch her. Jill, Patrick, and Amy go wedding dress shopping. Jill asks why she's changing her dress last minute and she says it wasn't right for her. While Jill compliments each dress, Patrick insults them. Jill complains to Patrick about the string of bad luck she's been having with guys. Patrick encourages her not to get too pessimistic and that her luck will change. Amy tells her that she should just go for someone who doesn't treat her like Patrick suddenly thinks of his friend Mark, who's a teacher. Again, Amy changes dresses and Jill compliments each one, while Patrick dismisses them. Eventually, as the champagne is flowing, Amy keeps trying on new dresses and soon Patrick puts on a dress and pretends to be Joan Crawford. They all laugh. Jack and David go tux shopping. David says that their time with Vanessa was epic, but she sent them crazy texts after. David says that they're bringing Vanessa to Ron's wedding because he said it was okay. Jack says that Ron's an idiot. And even though he went to college with them, they were never sure if he actually went to classes or just resided in their dorms. Jack says that he doesn't have a date yet for the wedding, and David tells him to bring Vanessa's daughter, which makes Jack do a spit take in front of the shop owner. Patrick's friend Mark takes Jill to a drive-in theater for a foreign film. Mark's been teaching chemistry for high school seniors for 15 years. Jill makes a Breaking Bad joke, but Mark gets upset and says that's offensive to teachers. To break the tension, Jill asks if he wants to get popcorn and he agrees, annoyed. Jack goes speed dating and meets a woman who has BPD and bipolar. He asks if she likes to dance and she says no. At the movies, Jill asks for butter but Mark asks for no butter, saying that it's not real butter and explains it's just chemicals. Jill tells Mark that she works for a software company but works in the graphic design section. He tells her that she doesn't have to apologize for that, confusing her as she was simply stating what she did for a living. Each speed date appears to get more and more chaotic. Jack's next speed date asks him if he wants to join her party, which he politely declines. Mark and Jill watch their movie. Mark asks if she's having a good time and she says yes. Jack's next date goes on about her ex, telling Jack she slept with his brother, but she wants him back. Jack clarifies that she wants her ex back, but she says her ex's brother. Mark asks Jill if she wants to get intimate after, shocking Jill, who doesn't reply. Jack eventually is paired with a woman he actually bonds with, but as she goes to put her number in his phone, a text comes through from David with a photo of him in bed with Samantha and Vanessa, and the woman is horrified. After, Jack and Jill show up at the same bar, just missing each other as they enter. They both change shoes on the same couch but don't see each other. Jill dances with a random man and Jack with a random woman. They both seem to be having fun, but never see each other. 2 days before the wedding party goes to the rehearsal, and Ron wears his tux, despite not needing to. Father Mitchell has everyone line up. Ron keeps telling everyone his father is 75, despite looking younger. Amy asks if her mother and Nana can practice their walk, but her Nana is in the bathroom. Ron gets upset, stating that her Nana has to be there for her wedding, and Amy, annoyed, clarifies that today isn't the wedding, it's just the rehearsal. Nana re-enters and says that the bathroom's horrible. At the rehearsal dinner, Amy's mother gives a speech and says that her late husband is watching over them. Ron looks up, confused. They all cheers and Ron chants, "Let's eat." Nana says that Amy's father might not have been her real father. Jill meets Gabe at the rehearsal dinner. Gabe asks Jill if she wants a drink and she says yes. Meanwhile, at a bar, Jack drinks with David and Samantha. Samantha asks Jack if he wants to do the geek dance, but he says no because it didn't lead to any hookups. Samantha tells Jack about Jill coming up to her after and asking about him. Jack is upset she hadn't told him earlier, but Samantha says if it's meant to be, then they'll run into each other another day. Jack says she sounds like that strange woman he met on the bridge. Samantha says that she's just Cecil who is demented and says that to everyone. Jack is distraught, thinking destiny was coming his way and now knows it's all nonsense. Samantha disagrees and says that tonight they're meeting his soulmate. Then she gets the microphone and tells the crowd that the dance geek is here tonight and is hot. Back at the rehearsal dinner, Jill and Gabe awkwardly watch Ron and Amy enthusiastically kiss, and Gabe asks Jill to dance. Gabe is a terrible dancer and they bang heads. Jack tells a woman at the bar that he used to travel the world for dance competitions. She doesn't dance, but they're getting along. The woman says that she's happy Samantha called him out on the floor because that's how they met. Jack invites her to the wedding and she says yes. Gabe apologizes for banging heads. Nana asks if the two are related and Jill says no, but laughs. Gabe asks if they can start over. He reintroduces himself. The woman asks Jack if he's been married and he says yes. The woman says that her favorite movie is Frozen and favorite musician is Selena Gomez. Then says she just turned 21 and asks how old he is and he says 42. The woman says that she stabbed her last boyfriend, worrying Jack, who has just asked her to the wedding. Jack goes to dry cleaning to pick up a suit at the same time as Patrick, and they realize they're attending the same wedding. Patrick says he knows Amy and Jack says he knows Ron. The dry cleaner thinks they're a couple and then calls them pansies. Then Patrick yells at him, saying the dry cleaner wouldn't have a job without pansies because they design the clothes. The two leave. At the grocery store, Jill runs into David in the card section. They also talk about how they're going to the same wedding. Jill thinks David's cute, but then he clarifies that he has a girlfriend. Jill says that she's had a rough few days for her love life. David says he recognizes her from the club, when she went up to Samantha to ask about Jack. Then he realizes that Jack and Jill are perfect for each other and tells her that he's about to solve her dating issues. At a diner, Patrick tells Jack that he has the perfect woman for him and asks if he's bringing a date to the wedding. Jack says yes, some girl he met at the club, but isn't excited about it. Patrick tells him that he should upgrade to Jill before it's too late. Jack hesitates because he feels bad not bringing the woman anymore. Patrick tells Jack to go to a gay bar that night to meet Jill. Patrick tells Jack to talk to the manager who he knows and will set the two of them up. Meanwhile, David is eating with Jill and trying to get in touch with Jack. Jill sees WWE champion Kurt Angle in the restaurant, thinking he's checking her out. Later, Jack goes to the bar per Patrick's instructions and sees Hank, the manager. However, just then a flash mob starts dancing and Jack gets stuck in it. Jack tries to participate in the dancing, but knocks everyone over by accident, injuring Hank. The singer yells at Patrick for ruining an engagement. Patrick, embarrassed, apologizes, then leaves. Jill tells David that she's been having a crazy week. Then Kurt Angle comes back in with someone else, stares at her, then leaves and comes back in with even more people. Then they leave again. Jill stands up and realizes there's a picture of Kurt Angle behind her and that's what he was looking at, embarrassed that she thought he was looking at her. At the wedding, Jack comes with the woman from the bar, then says hi to Patrick. Samantha and David show up, but says there was some drama, but couldn't bring Vanessa. Amy and Ron get married. Jill spots Jack for a moment, but Jack can't see Jill because the man in front of him is blocking her from view. Father Mitchell asks if anyone objects to the union, waiting for an elongated time, but no one says anything, so he moves on. After the wedding, Gabe and Jill dance, but Jill asks if they can go sit down, still thinking about their previous dancing episode where they bonked heads. When they arrive at the bar, Gabe asks why she didn't want to dance and she says that she just wasn't feeling it. Gabe, clearly insecure about her not wanting to dance, says that he was doing less advanced moves so she could keep up, which annoys Jill, but she doesn't say anything. Amy's mother, Linda, comes up to David and Jack's table. Linda introduces herself to Jack and asks him to dance, to his date's annoyance. Jill and Gabe talk about food and Gabe makes a weird joke about Jill being his dessert. Jack's date comes up to Jack and Linda holding a butter knife. Nana sees the knife and takes out her gun, then runs up to them. There's a scuffle, then we cut to Jack and David putting the woman in an Uber home. Jack tells David he wants to hang out outside for a bit before going back in, so David heads inside, leaving him to ponder the chaos of his last week. Back on the dance floor, Ron's dad makes a speech, telling Ron that he loves him and Amy and loves that they're together. As he continues his speech, we see Jack sitting alone on a bench. Jill sits down next to him as the New Year's countdown begins. Just at midnight, Jack and Jill look at each other. They introduce themselves. Sparks are flying. Jill says that she's had a strange night and Jack says the same for him. Jill tells him she's gone on a bunch of dates this past week that were all horrible, and Jack says that it's been the same for him. Jack tells Jill about Cecil and Jill stops him and says the same thing happened to her, but she didn't get a cat. Jack tells her that apparently she says it to everyone, yet they both believed her. Jill asks Jack what he does and he says he works at AES and she says that she does too. It's so crazy that they've never met before. Jill states that he must have a flaw after her series of dating misadventures and says that she expects Jack to be married with kids and living on another continent. Jack says he's divorced with no kids and resides on this continent, then guesses that Jill has an ex who's a drug kingpin, who's obsessed with her and ready to murder whoever gets between. Jill laughs, then clarifies that she's single and has never been married. Jack asks Jill to take a walk and the two stroll together, laughing. Jack and Jill run into Amy and Ron in the hallway and realize that Ron had almost introduced Jack and Jill a few days before, when Ron called him but his phone died. Jack says that he called Ron back and left a message but never heard from him. Ron checks his phone and realizes he did miss a message from Jack, but gets confused and thinks he's suddenly on the phone with Jack. Amy states that he loves her hot, dumb husband. She then asks them to come dance for her wedding and they reluctantly agree, nervous that perhaps they won't flow as well dancing as they do talking. Back at the party, Patrick flirts with Ron's father and Linda flirts with Gabe. Jill and Jack tell each other they are really just excited to get to know one another. They finally dance, totally in sync with one another. There's a serious spark between them and it's intense. Afterwards, a fun song plays as all the guests and bride and groom dance in a circle.